has put it on every one of us that talk a lot about lightning to make sure that you look at a black image. Oh, there it goes. to talk about lightning safety. So this morning, I wrote down some questions. I'm going to see how you all do. These are myth or fact questions. I'm going to say a statement, and together I want you just to say if you think it's a myth or fact. Please participate. Just say it, all right? So there's an interesting statement, and the statement goes, lightning will never strike the same place twice. Do you think that's a myth or a fact? Oh, wow. That was pretty good. My students really suck at that one. Did you know there's a guy named, his name is, he's a park ranger out of Shenandoah in Virginia. And his name, I've forgotten right now, but he was struck 7 times and survived them all. This guy struck, have you ever seen Benjamin Button? You know that guy? That's after this other guy's story, and I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Struck 7 times and survived all of them. By the way, your survival rate for getting struck is about 90%, but we'll talk more about that in a second. How about this question, or this statement? All lightning strikes produce thunder, myth or fact? Are you serious? Okay, if you're afraid to say it, let's show hands. How many of you think that's a myth? All lightning strikes produce thunder. How do you think if it's a fact? Okay. Every single lightning strike does produce thunder. If you got it wrong, don't worry. Every single lightning strike produces thunder. Sometimes you can't hear it, though. Now, interesting thing about lightning and thunder. Were any of you taught as children to count between when you saw lightning and when you heard thunder? Okay. Were you taught how to count, or were you just taught to count? And the longer the numbers were, the farther the lightning was away from you. Was anybody taught anything specific? What was that? 5 seconds, right? So no joke, my daughter was 4 years old. Of course, she is going to be indoctrinated into understanding how weather works. 4 years old, we're sitting on the couch. Y'all heard of the show Bob the Builder? If you don't know this already, there's an entire channel that's devoted to 24 hours of preschool programming. It will ruin your life. It's called Sprout. So we're watching Sprout one night when it was storming in Illinois. And my daughter's sitting next to me, and Bob the Builder comes on. And Bob is talking to his crane, who is named Lofty. Thank you. So Lofty is freaking out. They're rebuilding a barn that was destroyed by some bad weather. Why Lofty's afraid is because he hears thunder off in the distance, and Lofty should be afraid. He's a giant metal object. So Bob says, don't you worry, Lofty. Next time we hear some lightning, we will count. And so Bob, the lightning strikes, and Bob starts counting. Now, I count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. Bob counts in elephants. So it was 1 elephant, 2 elephant, and he gets all the way to 8 elephants. And Bob looks at his crane and bold-faced lies to him. Says, don't you worry, Lofty. That lightning is 8 miles away. And my little 4-year-old, who I'm watching this with, looks up at me like, that's not right, Dad. And I'm like, yes. My chest swelled. I'm like, that's my kid who sees bad science in her cartoons. So we're still sitting there watching. In the next episode, I think Sprout knew it was storming in Illinois, because the next episode was an episode of the Berenstain Bears. And in the Berenstain Bears, it was an episode called Count Your Blessings. And in the episode, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Sister and Brother Bear and Honey Bear were all inside of a tree where they live, which is the worst possible place to be when there's lightning around. But anyways, the power goes out. Sister Bear freaks out. Papa Bear says, hey, I'm an old weatherologist. There's no such thing, but he says that to her. And he goes, listen, Sister Bear, let's see how close the storm is. Next time there is lightning, let's start counting. So he starts counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm watching the show. My 4-year-old, who's now 9, is watching the show. And we're waiting to see what Papa Bear says. And he looks down at Sister Bear and says, that lightning is 1 mile away. And she looks at me and I look at her and we both nod. And because of that, my daughter has no choice but to be a gigantic nerd for the rest of her life. But nerds make money, so we'll leave it at that. Anyway, if we kind of keep going on here, remember this, when you see lightning start counting, every multiple of 5, that's 1 lightning strike away. So if you count to 10, it's 2 miles away from you. Count to 15, it's 3. Beyond about 20, you won't be able to hear it anymore. You won't be able to hear it. The lightning, the sound is dissipated, plus the curvature of the earth affects it, which brings me to an interesting question. You've probably all heard of heat lightning before, right? Heat lightning. So what the heck is heat lightning? Is it lightning that's formed on the intense heat of a summer night? How many of you think that is a myth or a fact? So let's raise hands for myths first. And how do you think it's a fact then? And some of you are not voting. That's okay. I know dinner is right on the doorstep here. I'll tell you something. There is no such thing as heat lightning. Heat lightning is basically just lightning from a distant thunderstorm that we see the flash but don't hear the sound. It's not caused by the heat of a summer night. In fact, here's an interesting question, myth or fact. A lightning strike can heat the air around it to a temperature hotter than the surface of the sun. How many think that is a fact? How many think it's a myth? Interesting, we're split on this one. Turns out it's definitely a fact in terms of the lightning strike can actually heat the air around it to 5 times the temperature of the surface of the sun. That's 54,000 Fahrenheit. And by the way, that's what thunder is. When you rapidly heat the air, it causes it to expand, and that produces a sound wave that you all hear. How about a couple more here? How about this one? Myth or fact, you have better odds of winning the Mega Millions lottery than getting struck by lightning this year. How many think that's a fact? Better chance of winning the lottery. Think it's a myth, better chance of getting struck. Good. Your odds are horribly in your favor of getting struck than winning that lottery. And Dave, I hope you told them if your investment strategy includes playing the lottery, stop now. That's not very good. If we want to go into some statistics on that, we can. What about this? I'm just going to ask a question, see what you come up with. Where's the safest place to be when there's a storm with a lot of lightning? Where do you think it is? It is your car. You've answered 2 of them for me, haven't you? Bob the Builder and car. Yeah, get in your car. Your car's an incredibly safe place to be unless you're very successful from farming and you own a car that's made of carbon fiber. That's not going to save you. But a car that has a metal subframe and chassis acts as a Faraday cage preventing you from getting struck. Your car's the safest place to be when it comes to lightning. Last couple questions here. What do you think about this? You think the rubber soles on the shoes of your feet will protect you from lightning? So if you think that's true, the rubber soles kind of insulate you. We'll go fact on that one. And how about myth on that one? Interesting. So my laptop here is plugged into a power strip. I'm going to guess I'm running 110 volts on this, 15 amps. Okay? With my shoes on, if I stuck a fork in that, you'd all be in for a good show. 110 volts, 15 amps. The lightning strikes in the video you saw a few moments ago, they can produce over 1 billion volts and between 30,000 and 300,000 amps. So, this will do nothing. It doesn't do anything. You are not insulated. And I think with that, I need to get to this slide. You have to take this away from me today because the National Weather Service said so. Look at the figure that's on the right. Look at the icons and the color coding. Gentlemen in the audience, I need your full attention. We are 80% of lightning victims. We are not going to discuss why that is today. But you need to know this. So therefore, at all times, you need to bookmark that website. It is Blitzertung, which is German for lightning location, and it's a free web service that tells you exactly where there is lightning in real time. It's got a 1-second delay. My dad was struck in 2014 by lightning. He was up in far northern Wisconsin on vacation with my mom. It was a storm approaching. It was my mother's birthday, so we ran out to get the car. And when he ran out to get the car to pull it up to the door for her, lightning struck a huge tree, ran straight down the side of the tree and jumped into his leg and burned him up his leg and back down the other. Threw him 8 feet, and for a moment he was knocked unconscious. Thankfully, he survived. And I got this phone call from mom saying, hey, Dad was just struck by lightning. I'm like, is he alive? He says, yeah, he's fine. We're at the hospital right now. I'm like, geez. So after I calmed down, I actually went out to that website and saved the data, sent it to my dad via text, said, hey, here's the one that got you. You can monitor it in real time. What are your odds? Your odds of winning the Mega Millions lottery, if you play that, 1 in 175 million. Your odds of getting struck this year, 1 in 700,000. That's a 3 order of magnitude difference. What's your odds over your lifetime? 1 in 8,000 of getting struck. Anybody been struck? Okay, usually we have, Dave, you been struck? Wow, see? And Dave's older than all of us, so that makes sense. He's had a better chance. Your odds are against you, Dave. And you're male, so that's it. So let's talk about this briefly. Ready? So I'm going to show you some other stuff. Lightning, where is it around the world? You live in a part of the world that it's the most frequent. Vaisala makes the sensors that detect it. You can clearly see the distribution. There are 100 lightning strikes per second on Earth. That's 9 million a day. What do they look like? Check out this animation. You'll see in the background, it'll start to show up. This is shot at 9,000 frames per second. You're seeing what are called stepped leaders racing down from the base of a cloud. With the naked eye, they're practically invisible. It's not until they hit the ground and do that that you actually see them. So in 95% of all lightning strikes, the current, and therefore the ionization, and therefore the light you see, comes from the ground up. And in this case, you're not only seeing that type of lightning, but the opposite type of that. We call it positive polarity lightning. You see the 3 towers that sent their leaders upward? Those ones are awful. They are 10 times as powerful as the lightning strikes I explained to you a few minutes ago when talking about the outlet. This whole video in real time is 1/3 of a second, which means if you're a slow blinker, you would have missed everything in the real world. That one tower right there in the middle got struck 16 times in 15/100ths of a second. So this is what it does. And it likes to kill us, men. Please, please, please. Trees, never stand next to them. They're a conduit. Trees get their own category. 15% of all fatalities are people under trees. This is when bark gets struck. Here's what happens when not only the bark gets struck, but the energy goes into the middle of the tree, blows it apart. So you either die by blunt force trauma, or you die by electrocution. I'm trying to scare you here because the National Weather Service told me to do that. Stay away from this stuff, monitor it. And by the way, check out this video. This is in Chicago a few years ago. That pole just got struck and just blew it to pieces. They'll slow it down so you can see it again. Watch it right there. Don't mess around with this. When you hear thunder go indoors, don't think you can get a little bit more work done. That may end your life. Please, please, please let this be effective. By the way, I got to show you this because I know there's a lot of cow-calf operations in the room. Cows love to eat the green grasses on the other side of the fence, right? Poke their head through. What are they touching? A conductor. The fence. Lightning hits the fence, lights them all up. Cows like to shade under trees when it's hot and humid. Tree gets struck, it gets them all. Cows are at a distinct physiological disadvantage when compared to humans. And this will be the last thing I tell you about lightning. If you are out and there's no shelter nearby, so you're out in the middle of your field and you may not have a tractor nearby or a vehicle, you'll know if you're about to get struck by lightning. You might know how you'll know. Your hair is going to stand up. That's no lie. That's how it happens. Because the electric field around you approaches 3 million volts per meter. Ever taken off a really woolly sweater in winter and your hair stands up with that? That's barely 100,000 volts per meter. When you're about to get struck, and if you're bald, you're still going to feel this, so don't worry, all right? You'll be like, crap, I wish I had hair so I know if I'm going to get struck. No. You're going to feel this. When that happens, this is what you do. You do not lie down on the ground and you don't run. You never know that maybe the direction that you run is where the strike is going to happen. The buildup of the electric field may be over there, not where you are. And if you run, you'll get there at the right time, be the conduit to finish the whole strike. So you stay put, you put your feet together, and you crouch on the balls of your feet. And you wait and pray for it to all go away. Why do you not lay down? Why do you not spread your feet out? Well, cows physiologically are absolutely screwed when it comes to lightning. If lightning strikes right over there, and I'm standing here, we may put, I'll just put a number on, 1 million volts into the ground. It dissipates radially away from the strike. If I'm standing here, I may only be at 500,000 volts, which is high. But here's the thing. I can put my feet together. Both of my feet are roughly at the same voltage. Therefore, there's no reason for the current to be driven into my body. It goes underneath me. If I do this leg is at a higher voltage than this leg. And you've probably hooked up an electric fence once or twice in your life. That's how they work. Voltage differences. And you do this, the lightning strikes, hits that leg, goes, hey, look at this nice wet thing, goes right through you, goes past your heart and kills you. The cows can't put their feet together. At least I've never seen one that can do that. Therefore, their legs are spread apart. The lightning strikes the ground, goes right up one set of legs, down the other, and the heart is in the middle. So I don't know what you can do in terms of protecting your herd when you see a thunderstorm coming. I don't know if you can very rapidly get them into a barn or if you can have a barn big enough. Lightning risk with cattle may just be a part of life that we cannot mitigate against that risk. But that website I showed you earlier, blitzertongue.org, you can monitor lightning in real time with it to see when the threat is highest. So keep all of that in mind. Now, I've done my duty to the National Weather Service, and I hope that you found that interesting. Let's finish this up. Ready? Here's how we get toward the